Hello there viewers, and welcome back to another video today, where today I want to talk about Gran 7 and the major features which I'd like to see in GT7. Now in today's video I'm just going to focus on the big things which we can only hope are already fully under development, as to be honest, if Polyphony aren't already trying to implement these things into GT7, we probably won't get these things at all. I will be doing a follow-up video to this soon though, discussing the smaller changes which I want to see ahead of GT7, which should be able to be implemented fairly easily. Before going any further though, we first of all need to talk about the recent revelation that GT7 will be the first ever cross-gen game made by Polyphony Digital, and will be coming out on both the PS4 and the PS5. In my opinion, I don't necessarily think that this is a bad thing, as I reckon that Polyphony will make the GT7 PS4 game a completely separate game to the GT7 PS5 game. If we take a look at an example of what EA Sports Canada did when the FIFA franchise was transitioning over to the PS4, up until 2016, EA continued developing the FIFA games for the PlayStation 3, but for FIFA 18 and FIFA 19, EA basically just copy and pasted the updated squads, kits, etc. to the PlayStation 3 version of FIFA 17. The FIFA 18 and FIFA 19 PS3 games were literally just FIFA 17, but with the new players, etc. added in. This is what I think Polyphony will do with the GT7 PS4 game. I reckon that they will just copy and paste the new cars, tracks, menus and career mode events over to GT Sports, and basically just release the GT7 PS4 game as a beefed up version of GT Sports. I'm pretty sure I remember Tishney saying that the cars and track which we saw in the GT7 trailer are already in GT Sport, and that the GT7 trailer was actually filmed in GT Sport. If this is true, then it shows that transferring all the new cars and tracks from GT7 over to GT Sport should be quite easily possible. If I am right and the GT7 PS5 game is allowed to be the game that it was always meant to be, then these are the major changes which I am hoping to see. Now this is something which people have spoken a lot about, and is one of the main things that pegs back GT Sports in my opinion. As someone who runs their own league, 16 car lobbies is something which causes all kinds of problems. If you have 36 people wanting to take part in a league race, you either have to tell 4 of them to get lost and have 2 16 car lobbies, or you have to have 3 12 car lobbies. Now this might not sound like too much of an issue, but it only takes a few people not to turn up to an event or to disconnect or rage quit, and you quickly end up in a situation where races can quite frankly get farcical, and you end up with only 7 or 8 people left in a race. This isn't too much of an issue in sprint racing, but if you want to do an endurance race, especially if it's a multi-class race, things can quickly get very silly, especially if there's a large spread of abilities. I seriously hope that GT7 has private lobbies with a capacity of at least 30 people, because if so, league racing in GT7 could boom, with epic Group 3 and Group 4 car multi-class endurance races and crazy reverse grid races. A 30 car top split FIA race could be brilliant too, especially in the manufacturer series, where you could see every manufacturer being represented, with there currently being 25 manufacturers in the manufacturer series. If the GT7, PS4 and PS5 games are identical though, and crossplay is a thing, then I unfortunately think that this will not be possible, as the PS4 cannot handle big lobbies. This was proven when GT Sport was released, and the servers struggled to handle the 24 car online races which were initially held, and ended up being reduced to 20 car races. This is something which the PS5 should be able to handle no problem, but basic 8-year-old PS4s like my own will not be able to handle this. Dynamic time of day and weather is something which we have seen previously in the Gran Turismo franchise in GT5 and GT6, and is something which most probably will return for GT7. It has already been hinted at in the GT7 trailer and would make for some epic endurance races, especially in league racing. It does appear that for GT Sports, different time of days and weather was not at the top of Polyphony's priority list, with wet weather only being added into the game 2 years after release for 3 circuits. There are only 3 circuits as well that can be driven at night time, so hopefully proper day to night and wet to dry racing is something which we will see return for GT7. What I hope for in Gran Turismo 7 is realistic wet weather driving. Those of you who watched my karting videos last week will have seen that in real life, when the track is wet, the racing line changes completely, with the rubbered in parts of the track becoming insanely slippery and the outside line often becoming the quickest line. This is something which should be implementable into GT7, with grip reduction offline due to marbles and dust already being something that is simulated in GT Sport. Theoretically, you should basically be able to invert this so the normal dry line in the wet is treated as though it's dirty and covered in marbles. Hopefully puddles and aquaplaning will be simulated too, like it is in most other racing games nowadays. At the moment, the GT Sport penalty system absolutely infuriates me. Now, this is not for the normal reasons of ridiculous collision penalties being handed out or people who have the emotional control of a 5-year-old being allowed to go on a rampage, but more because of the unrealistic way which the game polices these issues. Take a look at Formula 1 for example. In a race, when a driver goes 1mm beyond the track limits, they are not instantly hit with a penalty. Instead, the stewards note their track limit infringement and, once they start to build up, give them a black and white warning flag. Only after that do they then start dishing out penalties. In Gran Turismo Sport, however, you can gain absolutely nothing from the minutest of track limit infringements, and yet you get instantly hit with sometimes as much as a 1.5 second penalty, which often costs you even more time than that. In my opinion, an iRacing style points-based system needs to be implemented, especially for track limits, whereby you're allowed to get away with a certain number of track limit infringements before getting penalised or disqualified, and where each infringement costs you either SR or DR instead. Only the massive corner cuts or track limit extensions should be instantly penalised, in my opinion, with the current system being way too heavy-handed. In my opinion, virtual reality headsets are quite frankly epic, and I am desperate to try one myself. VR is perfectly suited to racing games and allows you to do things like look in your mirrors, look to your side and look at the apexes of tight corners without needing huge, massively expensive triple monitor setups which PlayStations don't even support. VR is the future of racing games in my opinion, and we know already that it's something which Polyphony is very much keen on, with GT Sport already supporting the rather pathetic original PlayStation VR headsets with a time trial and 1v1 VR mode. That is all that the PS4 could handle. Hopefully, the hugely powerful PlayStation 5 will be able to support racing online in VR, with PCs already capable of handling this and the PlayStation VR 2 dev kits already in the hands of major developers like Polyphony. Not only will being able to race online in VR be epic, but it should also help those who lack spatial awareness and or those who struggle to spot when people are alongside them, as you will now be able to spot people in your mirrors and be able to look over and see them. If GT7 is going to have a fully fledged campaign mode like previous installments of the franchise, then the AI needs to be vastly improved. Currently, even the slowest of drivers are capable of beating the opposition on professional difficulty, and you could be forgiven for thinking that the cars are being driven by a bunch of chimpanzees. To stop the campaign mode from becoming farcical, the opposition cars need to become a lot faster and develop something resembling racecraft. So the final thing on my major wish list is the obvious more cars and tracks. This is something which we can already be pretty sure we will be getting, as GT7 will be a main Gran Turismo game at the end of the day, with the 6 previous games all having had hundreds upon hundreds of cars and tons of tracks, including plenty of original tracks. The most recent game, Gran Turismo 6, had the most, with 1,247 cars and 100 tracks, so we can assume that Gran Turismo 7 will have quite a few. We obviously know already about the return of Trail Mountain, and we can assume that other GT stalwarts like Grand Valley Speedway, Autumn Ring and Deep Forest Raceway will return to having featured in every previous main game. What you need to remember is that GT Sport was a spin-off online racing focused game which was never supposed to have tons of cars and tracks. I personally cannot wait to do FIA races around tracks like Trail Mountain. That will be brilliant. Cars and tracks which I would specifically like to see return to the game are NASCARs and off-road cars. We've already seen in the Gran Turismo 7 trailer that Daytona International Speedway will be returning to the franchise, and you would hope that, license depending, this will see the return of NASCARs too. They were in the previous two main games along with Daytona and other oval tracks like the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and in my opinion, if you're going to have oval tracks in a game, you need to have oval racing cars, as Group 3 racing around oval tracks is rather unrealistic and feels a bit odd in GT Sport. Currently, tracks like Northern Isle Speedway, Blue Moon Bay and Special Stage Route X rather go to waste and are just crying out for cars like NASCARs. Tracks like Fisherman's Ranch, Colorado Springs and Sardinia Windmills are criminally underused too in GT Sport in my opinion, and so the return of lots of off-road cars and tracks would be brilliant. These are things which we can probably already assume will return, to be honest, with Polyphony's slogan for GT7 being Gran Turismo is back. Before I end the video though, I just want to tackle a couple of major things which people want to see and point out the issues of licensing. When a game developer wants to add a new car or track into a game, they first of all have to give the car manufacturer or track owner lots and lots of money in the form of a licensing agreement. That is the reason why Lotus were removed from Gran Turismo Sport, having featured in the closed beta demo and Gran Turismo Sport trailers. This is an example of why some of your favourite cars and tracks likely won't be in GT7. Licensing is also the reason why Gran Turismo has never had a sophisticated visual damage model, with manufacturers understandably not wanting to see their cars get smashed to pieces in-game like you do in BeamNG or Wreckfest where there are no licensed cars. This is why people who scream for a realistic damage model will unfortunately be almost certainly disappointed once more, and they should probably go and play Wreckfest instead. But guys, I hope you did enjoy watching that video today. Just thought I'd throw it out there and my thoughts on Gran Turismo 7, features that I hope will get implemented for the game. Obviously we don't know anything yet really about Gran Turismo 7, there hasn't been any real things announced, we just had that trailer. But yeah guys, if you did enjoy watching that video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. So goodbye.